Good evening, boxing fans, and welcome to another exciting edition of Enter the Ring Live with your host, Mighty Mike.
AJ
And
Rage.
we are awaiting Eric the Red. I know he's busy out there. Well, up there in the Pacific Northwest with business. And I'm assuming he's going to be joining us probably any second now.
Yeah, he's probably
Oh, maybe he had they had power outages. Maybe he's
possibly,
suffering that power outage. Let's hope that's not the case, because more importantly than the show is just staying warm.
Exactly.
Speaking of that, are you watching the news? What's happening in places like Texas, where they've developed a lot of part of Western Texas to these windmill farms? These solar or not solar power, but these wind powered turbines, and they're completely frozen over. So 4 million plus people have been without power for the last couple of days.
I heard that there's going to be a lot of fatalities, possibly.
Yeah, there's already been some. They got people.
Here's my question: that one guy stepped down from Homeland Security. Where is our FEMA or Homeland Security? Just like Katrina, why are they always waiting till the disaster happens? Why don't they get there and try to do something? I've been in these meetings before because I was a site surveyor for Homeland Security and FEMA. All I do is they give me this nice little pack with a helmet and a light and a shut off and a gas shut off. So if I'm near certain utilities, I can help shut things out in the event of emergency.
Yeah.
But even when you go to their meetings, it's like they don't have any. It's honestly, it's all about money to them.
And it's all reactive. They're not proactive. It's all like
they're not.
Something bad happens.
Some of the laziest people you've ever seen in your entire life. I mean, look at Katrina. I mean, go back and look at Katrina. We got Mardi Gras right around the corner. There's still places over there that are still destroyed. The only place that wanted to get fixed was Bourbon Street.
Yeah. I've never been. I'm honest with you. I've never really had a desire to go to New Orleans. The last person that I know close that went was our friend Labrada. He went, and
I've been there
a year or two ago, and he just said it just smelled like urine. It was just dirty.
It's I didn't go there during Mardi Gras. It was like we were stopping over there because my old boss a long time ago, he had a warehouse out in that way. It was kind of like a central point, and we had to pick up some speakers. And but I'll tell you what city I really liked, honestly, Memphis.
Memphis
is nice, man.
Memphis, Tennessee. It
was a city called Bridgeford or something like that. Bridgeford.
Yeah.
But
well, quite a few things have happened in the last. Believe it or not, it's only been 2 days since we did a show, but quite a lot of development since then. Some good, some not so good. I guess we're going to go ahead and get started with some of the rumors and things that have been happening in around the world of boxing. First and foremost, just announced today, just a few hours ago, the Carl Frampton Jamel Herring fight that we were talking about a few weeks ago, that we were excited for, has been postponed a couple weeks. Carl Frampton suffers a hand injury in training camp, and they said he has no training for 2 weeks. But normally when people hear that, they think, okay, well, the fight's postponed 2 weeks. That's not how it happens. If you've got to completely stop training for 2 weeks, you're not going to be in peak physical condition. I'm sure he could still do some conditioning and stuff, but at this stage in the game, it's all about sparring. It's all about getting your timing down on the mitts and stuff. And if you've got a hand injury, you can't do that. So they're talking now, maybe that fight gets postponed till sometime in the late spring. Late spring, maybe even as far away as summer, depending on the severity of that hand injury.
I think the bout's in jeopardy, to be honest with you. At this
you could be right. I think
this bout's in jeopardy because, let's be honest, I don't really know, based off of his last performance, how much Jamel Herring really wanted this fight. But with Carl Frampton getting this injury, delaying it, their schedules just might conflict. Jamel Herring may still want to take something, maybe not at that date, but maybe a little bit later date, just a tune-up fight, and it might not fit with what Carl Frampton's doing right now. So that bout might be history.
Well, along those same lines, I did read something where his hand was being forced by the WBO to have this defense against Carl Frampton. It wasn't something he was super keen on.
Yeah.
So with this now he can look in another direction and go, well, hey, look at, I agreed, we signed the contract. It's not my fault he got injured. It's kind of weird to see Carl Frampton 2 fights in a row now. He's suffered a hand injury. If you remember, prior to his last fight, that fight got postponed. Remember, it was somewhere in I think it was in Vegas or somewhere, but
that was a big with
a planter or something fell on his hand. Like,
it happened. It happened at the
MGM Grand.
At the MGM Grand.
Yeah,
yes, they were talking about it. Yeah, that was really weird.
Now this guy either has the worst luck they got to walk around. He's got to walk around with pads on his hands during fight camp or what? I don't know.
I remember I was with Nick one time. We were at the MGM, and you know how that one part where they have like that ship that's inside there, and it's like a roaming kind of thing, and then they got like a place like where the bands play, and a tile from the top came down, fucking smacked Nick right in the literally like right here, hit him.
That place is falling apart.
I don't know what it is, yeah, but he hit him. I mean, it didn't hurt him or nothing, but you know, people freaked out, and you know, we got a couple free drinks out of it. Like watered down shit, you know. So I told Nick, I kept trying to hint to Nick, fall on the ground, fall on the ground, fall on the ground.
So anyway, okay, so well, that fight, like you said, that fight could be in jeopardy. I guess we'll wait to see what happens in the days and weeks ahead. If you know, if they're going to just right away select another date and get that, because that's a fight I was excited for, and that's a fight I thought was very winnable for Carl Frampton. And you know, no disrespect to Jamel Herring, because up until his last performance, I was actually a big fan of his. And I still think he's a decent guy. I mean, he's a military guy, former Marine, but something was amiss in that last fight. He looked for that way out, and he was granted that way out in that last fight. He very well could have been on his way to losing that belt.
I think he was. I mean, I had him down on the cards and stuff, and he was taking a beating. And actually, the round prior to the one that when they decided to stop or whatever, I believe it was an eye injury or something, right?
Well, yeah. Well,
he took a thumb to the eye or something. He said,
but it was rounds earlier though.
Yeah, so it didn't make any sense. It had a little bit of nothing. It was nothing. When you see guys like you know, Vitaly Klitschko and some of these other guys and some of the grotesque stuff. I mean, even Turiano Johnson wanted to continue even though he was about to get knocked out.
Yeah,
but his lip was falling off. But yeah, Jamel Herring definitely didn't want that. So I mean, you know, we kind of gave him a mulligan for that because he's always been a guy who, you know, he shows up and he's determined. But Carl Frampton, you know, even at this later stage of his career, is still a very dangerous fighter. And
he's skilled. He's the only guy that in recent memory that I know that could give up height and reach significantly and out jab his opponent. The only other person that in my just immediate recollection that can do that is Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao could fight a taller guy and out jab a taller guy. But Carl Frampton, once he gets that range and finds it, he knows how to out jab a bigger guy. I think he was going to control Jamel Herring with the jab. And when they got the infighting, you know, he's a shorter, stockier guy, and he's very good at infighting. You know,
Jamel Herring, another knock that he had on him too was the fact that he's not real fleet of foot and he's not real fast. And Carl Frampton's actually got some speed and he's got some pop. I wouldn't consider Jamel Herring a big puncher. Where I don't consider Carl Frampton that one-hitter quitter, but he's definitely a guy who's knocked out more people than he's went to a decision with. You know, he's the type of guy that'll just break you down and just end you later in the fight. Yeah.
So let's hope that Carl Frampton. Let's hope it's nothing serious and that fight can happen. And if not, I'm sure Jamel Herring will find somebody else to fight. And then, you know, Carl Frampton in that division, I think he could find. You know, he'll find another path towards a title shot. You know, we'll see.
Yeah, this is an unfortunate circumstance. I was actually really excited about that fight.
Yeah,
I'm just keeping my fingers crossed on the big one that we're going to talk about later. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed nothing happens.
Exactly. Like both guys.
I'm really going to be disappointed, man.
Both guys were on weight. Remember about a week or so ago. Well, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah,
but something else that happened. Another, I guess, news and notes, rumors, whatever you want to call them. It's not rumor. It's fact now. It was rumored to be in the making, and they had the press conference yesterday. I actually watched it live. I was at a home inspection and I had about 20 minutes to kill, and it popped up on my feed on I can't remember if it was Facebook or YouTube, but Tim Tszyu will be taking on Dennis Hogan March 31st in Newcastle, Australia, a place that his father, I guess, had fought. They said like eight or 10 times he had previously fought. It's just one of those coastal towns that's a very rabid, you know, they love their boxing, they love their footy, you know what I mean? And March, that's kind of the tail end of summer. Actually, it's going into the fall, so it's still, the weather's still nice out there, and it's supposed to be at a big stadium out there, and they're expecting a sellout. Tim Tszyu, once again, he was hoping to get the Patrick Teixeira fight because he was hoping to get that title shot. I think this bodes well for him, though. You know, why not have another one more fight and then become he's already the mandatory.
It's been the mandatory for over a year or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think he's been a mandatory since he beat Jeff Horn.
Yeah,
and so God, that's a fight. You know, man, I don't know what the travel situation is, but that's a fight I would love to go to. That's right around
Yeah,
my
hopefully they lift
birthday,
all this
end of
crap up,
March
man. That'd be great. That would, and it's going to be in Australia, right? Like you
in
said.
Australia. Yeah. Dennis Hogan, as we know, he's come up short in all three of his world title tries. I can't remember who his loss was. The second one, of course, it was to Jaime Munguia. And then the most recently, he lost that to Jamal Charlo, or was it Jamal? Jamal, the 160 pounder. He did go up 6 pounds, probably ill advised. He was too small for that weight.
Way too small.
And he ended up getting stopped in the 6th round. It wasn't devastating. He got knocked down earlier in the fight, and then in the 6th round, he got put on the seat of his pants, and he was a little bit staggered. And the referee just waved it off. Of course, it was here. I think it was in Texas, right?
Yeah, the Jamel Charlo fight was in
Hogan.
yeah, it was actually in Barclays in Brooklyn.
Oh, Brooklyn. Okay. So he was.
It was Jamal Charlo.
Jamal, 160, right?
Yes.
So this will be back down at the 154-pound limit. They're calling it. Well, the Hogan people were saying, I guess prior to the fight, they were saying Tim Tszયુ's a hype job. He's all hype. This, that, this, that.
Same thing about Munguia.
Well, then at the press conference, they were respectful. They were just basically saying, well, yeah, we feel that we are world level, and that this is going to put us right back in line for another title shot. So they're basically looking at Tim Tszyu as a stepping stone. Tim Tszyu says, no disrespect, but he's not world level, because every time he's got to the world level, he's failed. And that he was very poignant, and it was brilliant. It wasn't being disrespectful, and it wasn't even an opinion.
Just to a point, but
it was a fact.
Yeah, and I see that because that's just kind of adds to the interest and the spark that is Tim Tszyu. We talked about his patience. We talked about the power that he inherited from his dad, and his high ring IQ. But the thing is that I think Tim, he has a certain way of looking at a fight. He's not looking at the variables that may not happen. He's just looking at what's in front of him and the things that he needs to do in order to break this fighter down. I think that's what Dennis Hogan's going to run into. He's not going to realize how fast Tszyu is. He's not going to realize how elusive he can be at times and how patient he can be once he hurts him. But I think what he's going to really realize later on, and it's something that I don't think that people really know about Tim Tszyu, and I watched it more and more. He's pretty fast hand. I mean, he's got his hands can be really quick, but it's the pinpoint accuracy in which he throws his punches. That's going to be the downfall for Dennis Hogan. I know a lot of people made a big deal about Dennis Hogan when what Jamal Charlo did to him. I said, yeah, but he wasn't fighting at 154. He fought at 160. That's what you don't understand. That extra weight gave Charlo the advantage he needed. Now, if it was the other brother at 154, maybe the situation would have been different. Who knows? You know,
a little bit closer fight,
Yeah, but I definitely think Tim Tszyu he knows that a bad showing here will jeopardize any title shot later on, because they'll use as an excuse to not give him a title shot.
This is do or die for him. This is a fight he absolutely cannot lose.
Cannot lose.
What he said was, he said these boys, he says, I'm not just there to beat them. I'm there to take everything from them. And he says it's not personal. It's just he says they're standing in the way of everything that I've been working for. You mentioned fast hands, Tim Tszyu. You're very right. Dennis Hogan and his team, his manager, I don't know who the gentleman was, but he was kind of a big burly guy. He was saying that they felt Tim was one-dimensional, and he just relies strictly on power. And I do not. If there's ever a prospect that's more than one-dimensional, that's actually multi-dimensional, it's Tim Tszyu. Over a year ago, you and I sat here and did this show, and he was our prospect of the year.
Oh yeah.
And this is when he only had, I think, 14 fights, because we already saw the different nuances to his game. One-dimensional. Okay, in his last fight, he beat a guy with a straight right hand. The fight before that, Jeff Harn, he was beating him up to the body. Physically, he doesn't look like the biggest, strongest guy, and he actually is about the same height as Dennis Hogan. He might have even looked just a hair shorter. And Dennis Hogan physically looked bigger than him, like, a little bit beefier. But Tim Tszyu is all of 154 pounds. He is strong, and he is not going to allow Dennis Hogan to muscle him, because that's what I think his plan. He's going to try to basically do what Jeff Horn wasn't able to do, because maybe he thinks he's stronger or something. I don't think so. Tim Tszyu will not allow himself to be muscled. Yeah. And you talked about his fast hands. If anybody's out there watching, go to YouTube and type in Tim Tszyu, Mayweather Jim, Tim Tszyu, Dewey Cooper. more than a year ago, before COVID hit, he was here in the States doing quite a bit of sparring and training at a lot of the gyms. He was at the he was out wild card for, sparring with Manny Pacquiao, preparing him for the fight with Keith Thurman, and then he's doing some mitt work with Dewey Cooper at Mayweather's gym. Very impressive. I mean, you figure they probably worked on their skills together for all of about under an hour, and everything that Dewey Cooper was basically requesting of him to do, he was doing it, and it was impressive. I'm like, yeah, this kid does have fast hands.
Yeah, I just put the link and the stuff in our chat area on YouTube right now. I tell you what really impresses me about, I'm going to say it like I said, the patience is the one thing. That's something that it's really hard to acquire. You still see people, even at a veteran stage in their career, where they make those mental mistakes where they get hurt.
They don't
either wrap off or they don't take a knee. It's almost kind of like they lose their common sense. All those skills that they developed over the years and stuff just kind of go out the window. Tim Tszyu hasn't really been put in any real serious issue, but he's been fighting solid guys. I think the one that really impressed me, other than the one that he had against Brubaker back in Australia, I didn't even consider Jeff Horn. I knew Tim Tszyu was going to steamroll him, but it was a really strong guy who came in, was at Bowen Morgan.
Bowen Morgan,
where he just smoked him in one round. This guy was extremely strong, and the type of a fighter that they think a guy like Dennis Hogan to me is not a strong fighter. Couldn't push around Jaime Munguia, couldn't push around Jermell Charlo. He's there to be hit. He's just kind of a herky jerky, throws a lot of punches kind of guy.
He's very much. You could pretty much superimpose him and Jeff Horn. They have similar fighting styles. They're not
very
they're not technically sound. They're not technically. Apparently, he's working with a different trainer. He's no longer working with Glenn Rushton. I think Glenn Rushton took a lot of heat after that Jeff Horn fight, and a lot of people, the writing was on the wall that this guy doesn't belong training world-class fighters. He doesn't. Glenn Rushton, the guy that trained
training Tszyu.
No. Glenn Rushton, the guy that trained Jeff Horn.
Oh, Jeff Horn. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So remember, he was employing Jeff Horn to come on, Jeff. We need to get more. And Jeff Horn was just a beaten fighter 2 rounds previous. No, Tim Tszyu is trained by his uncle Igor, the same person that's been training him his entire life. I see Tim Tszyu. If there's how do I say this? Because there's the common link between Jaime Munguia and Jermell Charlo, because there's that common opponent, I think he's going to go out there and make and push to make a statement. Like you said, he's patient. I actually see him getting a little bit impatient in this fight because I think he wants to knock Dennis Hogan out. He wants to knock Dennis Hogan out, unlike the other two were able to do. Munguia, as we know, went the distance with Hogan. Jermell Charlo dropped him and then knocked him out, but it wasn't a knockout. It was a stoppage. Referee waved it off. It wasn't devastating. It just really wasn't.
No.
I think he wants to make a statement. I really do.
I definitely agree with you, bro, and I'm going to tell you why. I think Tim Tszyu made his first statement in his bout against Jeff Horn. He wanted to show against what Jeff Horn did against the so-called, in some people's eyes and in ESPN's clown eyes, Terrence Bud Crawford did. It wasn't the fact that Tim Tszyu knocked him out and whatever Terrence Crawford did. It was the manner in which he did it. It was so just pinpoint and precise, and just, you knew that. I mean, you almost felt sorry for, I never felt sorry for Horn against Crawford because he was actually being competitive. Jeff Horn at no time was competitive, no time took the wheel out of Tim Tszyu's hands. Tim Tszyu was in complete control from the opening round, and then he had this and I'll tell you, I still like it. Once he knocked down Jeff Horn, he had this kind of cold, calculated look where I think there was some bad blood there, definitely, and stuff, but it was kind of like, I think he held Jeff Horn on a little longer just to kind of punish him a little bit more and get that dramatic knockout that he was looking for.
If I remember right, I think they both stopped Jeff Horn in the same round. I think Tim Tszyu's was a much more dominant performance. And let's point out some of the factors involved in that fight. Okay, when Jeff Horn fought Terrence Crawford, he was here in Las Vegas. There was all kinds of issues him and his trainers were talking about in management prior to the fight, the way that Top Rank, the way that they treated them, the way that even before the fight, they were in a room. They said that it was uncomfortably hot.
Yeah, that's what they do. That's Top Rank's tactics. I've heard that.
And this was a fight at 147. Okay, this was not at 154. I think Jeff Horn has always been too big for 147. He's physically a thick guy. He's not real tall. He's only about 5'9" or so, but he physically is too thick, I think, to be fighting at 147. Yep. So he fought Terrence Crawford at 147. Yes, he lost. Tim Tszyu did it much easier, and Jeff Horn was more comfortable in that fight. It was in Australia, his hometown, just like Tim, in his hometown, at a natural weight, with fans. I mean, he had nobody there for him against Bud Crawford in Vegas. I mean, he was
all you got to do is go back
out.
and look at. All you got to do, for people that don't believe that, go back and watch, because I know exactly.
Go watch both fights and tell me.
We'll just watch the weigh-ins of Jeff Horn, Terrence Bud Crawford. Look how drawn Jeff Horn is in that fight. You made that comment too, how drawn he was, the dark circles under his eyes. This is a guy who really struggled to make that weight, so he's not at a comfortable weight. Against Tim Tszyu, there was no issue. It was the same situation with Munguia, what a lot of people don't understand, and his bout against Dennis Hogan and how he was struggling so much. You told me stories.
Oh, yeah. Jaime was struggling big time.
I mean, he was struggling. So then he goes up there, and he's at a more comfortable weight, and he's much, so those extra pounds,
If anything, during the weigh-in for Tim Tszyu, Jeff Horn, they actually, some of the people in the media, whatever you want to call them, were saying that Tim Tszyu looked drawn.
Yeah,
they're like, he looked drawn. Did he peak too soon? Did he cut too much weight? He comes in on fight night. He looked pristine.
Well, if he's anything like his dad, which he's probably got the same work ethic. Kostya Tszyu was a guy who was like Mayweather. They say Mayweather, but Kostya Tszyu was a guy who was always in the gym. His workouts were legendary. He used to have those little videos where you see these little things where he would do these things on his knuckles and
standing on his head and stuff.
Always working. He was Lomachenko before Lomachenko was Lomachenko. Different styles, but the work ethic was there, and how and the approach that they brought to boxing. I'm sure Tim Tszyu's the same way.
I got to be honest with you. I think Tim Tszyu, from the footage I've seen, he said he's already been in camp 6 weeks. I believe it. He's been in camp already. I believe that he, at this stage in his life, has an even greater work ethic than Kostya. And let me tell you why. It's because of that dark cloud. And I wouldn't even call it a dark cloud. It's a cloud. The cloud that constantly hovers over his head. The constant comparisons, the constant questions about his father. Kostya this, Kostya that, Kostya that. You could see he loves his father. He calls him dad. He says, when dad did this, when dad did that. But you can see that this kid has
sometimes you got to step out of that shadow. Yeah, you have to. And that was a problem that Julio Cesar Chavez was never able to do. So Julio Cesar Chavez, it wasn't so much. I think Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was the difference between him and Tim Tszyu was, the respect's there with him and his dad and stuff. But I don't think that the parental aspect was at a positive situation, because obviously, let's be honest, Julio Cesar Chavez is a very narcissistic guy. He always wants to remain number one. He would want to remain the number one Mexican fighter of all time, even over his own son. He would not even want to hand that crown to his son. Kostya Tszyu, on the other hand, would hand that crown over to his son. But his son's going to go out and create his own path and create his own destiny, because that's just the kind of guy he is.
That's what he's doing. But I think that's that extra motivation. You said that, he trains. I know he trains just as hard as his father trained. But I think, and in fact, I got to be honest with you, I think his uncle Igor training him, I'm not saying he's a more qualified trainer than Johnny Lewis was, but Johnny Lewis, you could tell that Johnny Lewis was just there kind of being like, he was more like the head coach, whereas Igor is the offensive coordinator, calling the plays. There's nothing that Johnny Lewis could ever teach or train Kostya. Everything Kostya learned was in the Russian amateur system. The dedication, the determination, the exercises, whatever it is he did, that was all him. That's the stuff that Tim has learned from the time he was able to walk. He does all those same, that regimented Russian style, just hardcore training. And I that's why I think he's the only question that I have about Tim still, and the jury's still out, is his chin. Because he's been hit, but
he got hit pretty good against Brubaker in that bout against Brubaker.
But Brubaker's not really a big guy.
Big puncher. Yeah,
no, that's what I'm saying. When he gets down with a guy that can punch, I want to see how Tim. Obviously, the key is to not get hit, but I just want to see how his chin holds up. When he does get hit, because eventually, it happens to everybody. Everybody takes a shot. So.
Well, everybody gets knocked down. I mean, like I said, there are some fighters out there that their claim to fame is, hey, I've never been knocked down. There's some people over there that just have ridiculously hard chins for whatever reason. But it doesn't mean that it's going to make it's like, I'll take it real quick. I'm not going to get on the fight, but Oscar Valdez, here's a guy that's been on the canvas numerous times. It's not the fact that can you knock him down, but can he get up? And there's a lot of fighters that just don't have the heart to get up. I don't see Tim Tszyu giving up in this fight no matter what. I see him digging deeper. For some reason, Hogan's able to be a little bit craftier, a little bit slicker, maybe just have a little bit more ring experience, and he's able to kind of put Tszyu kind of like, in a situation he doesn't want to be in.
He's going to try to make it ugly, like Jeff Horn tried and failed, but he's going to try to make it ugly because he's not going to outbox, out jab, and out. No, he's not going to.
But that's what I'm saying. You got to look at, all you got to do is go back and look at how his father was. There was times when look at his father's fight against Sharma Mitchell. Look at his fight against even Zab Judah in the 2 rounds. In the first round, it didn't look really good for Costa.
Yeah, he got tagged.
But the point is, Costa always knew how to dig himself out of a hole and come back and get this dramatic knockout.
Yeah.
I see Tim Tszyu not even allowing himself, and this is the difference between him and his dad. He's not going to allow himself to get into a hole. From the start of the fight, Tim Tszyu's already put in there what he needs to do, and if it's not working, he's already got 2 other stages of what he needs to do before he gets out of that round.
Yeah. Like I said, we have both said it, and we've both been very high on this kid for well over a year. I've watched, I think, every one of his fights. I'm very high on the kid. I was a big fan.
Well, he's a rarity. You don't see a whole lot of sons that come out and end up being, if not as good, maybe possibly better than their legendary father. I mean, you go back, you look at fighters like Shane Mosley, you look at guys even like, Eubanks, Ben, all these other guys, they're not going to achieve
JC
that.
Chavez Jr.
Yeah, they're not going to achieve that. It's very rare. Now, in the case of the only person I could think of off the top of my head is Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather obviously went out and did something more than what his dad did.
Yeah.
But it is what it is,
Yeah. Now I don't think, that's a lofty goal to set for Tim to do better. I don't think that Tim necessarily has to do more than his father did, but just winning a world title and defending that title multiple times, maybe unifying that title. Because remember, Costa never left 140 pounds. Costa stayed at 140 his entire career.
Never left.
So maybe Tim does something if he won't. Obviously, he doesn't have the amateur pedigree his father had, all the national championships and world championships, and the big mega money fights back then. There's no doubt he's going to fight the mega fights one day soon, hopefully one day soon. But maybe he wins the title at 154 and then he outgrows that division and he goes to 160 where, it's a great division,
It was crazy because I heard somebody talking about Costa Tszyu that they were talking about the Hurtado fight, which we were at. And they were saying that same gesture about the fact that Costa Tszyu had never ventured out of 140 pounds. What people didn't understand is that Costa Tszyu was originally scheduled to fight another fighter that day. He took Hurtado, who was actually a welterweight. It was actually the number 1 contender in the welterweight division, even though they fought it at that division right there and stuff. So there would have been opportunities out there. I would have liked to see Costa Tszyu. I can't tell you right offhand who was the people populating the division above him, but definitely there were some very interesting matchups that I would have loved to see. But you got to look at Tim Tszyu. Once he wins his 154-pound title, I definitely see him, because of his young age and he's still maturing, he's still growing, moving to middleweight and matching up against some of these ones. And that's going to be the difference between him and his dad, is these key matchups in different divisions.
Yeah, that's what we said. That's about the only thing really he can try to strive for,
yeah.
Unless he does unify, at 154 and just maintains those titles. Costa unified more than once. I mean, he unified the titles, lost them to Vince Phillips, and then came back and unified and won all 3 belts.
Still to this day, I've never watched that fight.
The Vince Phillips Costa Tszyu fight?
I refuse to watch it.
You know what? I watched it that night of the fight, and I never watched it again. Tszyu was going through all kinds of turmoil with his management and his former promoter, whatever. No excuses. He had Vince Phillips out early in the fight. If the fight would have been in Australia, the fight probably would have been stopped. But it was here in America. I think it was Atlantic City, New Jersey. So the referee allowed Phillips to continue, and then Phillips ended up catching Tszyu and hurting him with the right hand. And he never went down. He just got stopped against the ropes. But yeah, I never went back.
It was one of those shocking situations where honestly,
it was shocking. It was kind of like what happened the other day with Josh Warrington.
Yeah.
Similar. It was like this wasn't supposed to happen.
Well, it reminded me of something else. It reminded me of the Tommy Morrison, Michael Bent fight.
Oh, Michael Bent, yeah.
I didn't even watch a fight. I actually had a date that night, and I was going out, and I thought, am I gonna watch? I go, Tommy's gonna kill this guy. Next thing I know, I get a call from you, dude. Morrison got nice stuff. I was like, oh my god, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
that kind of stuff happens though. But
yeah.
So, let's see here.
So once again, we'll just finish up on that. March 31st in Newcastle, Australia. Tim Tszyu's taking on Dennis Hogan in what should be an exciting fight.
Yeah, they've actually already got it posted. The fight itself. Which is good. I believe I saw it. Did I say it here?
Yeah, the press conference was yesterday.
Yeah.
Let's go back. I want to touch on something for
Sure.
no more than 5 minutes. I sent you guys over an article a clipping from an article for Unboxing Scene that just came out today, and it said Jojo Diaz, blah blah blah, after his disastrous weekend, blah blah blah. And that first line right there, it just shows you there's forces working against Jojo Diaz that are beyond his control. Now, I didn't see any article about the Warrington Lara fight that said after Josh Warrington's disastrous weekend. You know why? Because Eddie Hearn would have put the squash on that ASAP. He would have told that publication, if you ever write that kind of shit again, I'll never give you a press credential to my fight again. I'm not going to let you disparage my fighters. It's bad enough that his fighter got stopped in dramatic fashion. Like you said, he may never be the same. But when I read that, I thought to myself, well, it was disastrous to his bank account because he had to lose $100,000. He had to basically lose 20% of his pay. But when you come out and you say disastrous weekend, he still managed to get a draw in a fight. I actually thought he won the fight comfortably. But either way,
this is the one, right, bro?
Yeah, this is the one. Yeah.
You want to go ahead and read it? You can go ahead.
It says, once beaten Joseph Diaz Jr. is looking to rebuild his career after a disastrous weekend. Now, this is a guy that just fought on the main event at Fantasy Springs on DAZN, right? The fight was a draw. Okay, he had lost the title on the scale. Yeah, in that regards, it's disastrous. But rebuild. They're acting like Jojo Diaz went in there, missed weight by 4 pounds, and got knocked out in 3 rounds. It's just these writers, man. I don't know where they get these guys from.
They love that kind of stuff, and you know what it is, bro. What really makes me sad is that they always pick the fighters that are the good guys. You've been in the gym with Jojo Diaz. You know he's a good kid. He's a respectful guy. He works hard. You don't see them doing that on a person like Shakur Stevens.
No.
Or any of these other ones. The only fighter I could think of that's kind of like on, what I would call the D side, meaning with his attitude, is Mayweather, and they love doing that. But Mayweather fed off of that.
Yeah.
But
Mayweather's whole persona was I'm the bad guy.
I mean, go back to even when both Jamel and Jamal Charlo both had horrible outings against Kobrov and Derevyanchenko. And
Kobrov, yeah.
And the thing was, you go back and you watch those fights, and the press made every excuse for them and made it and put a different light on it. Jojo, like I said before, I support in what he said. I don't care about this guy from the zone, whatever, and what he was trying to tell him and stuff, because Jojo's already been through it. He's the one that's got to deal with it. I'm sure he's having conversations with his dad, with his management, with his wife, whatever, with himself. He doesn't need to keep rehashing it. Jojo doesn't need to rebuild a career that's already successful. He had a bad night leading up to it. He was successful. I felt that night, unlike the judges, whatever the hell they were watching, but that was another story. But Jojo Diaz is going nowhere.
Yeah, they're acting like the guy. I mean, the guy, like I said, he just fought the main event on DAZN, and it was a pretty goddamn good fight.
Great
At
fight.
the end of the day, no matter who you thought won the fight, whether you thought Jojo should have knocked this guy out, an undefeated guy for one thing, with a very, very huge amateur career. They're acting like he fought some late sub and got a draw with some late sub or something like that. This guy was world class.
Well, they were sitting here pumping this guy up, this Rakhimov up, like he could be the next big thing. He could be the next, Parotnikov type of, like Ruslan kind of situation. So if this wasn't the top level Jojo Diaz this night, if this was a conflicted Jojo Diaz, a non-motivated Jojo Diaz, a shell of Jojo Diaz, and he did this to this guy at that stage, I would hate to be the next guy who gets to the ring with Jojo Diaz when he repairs all those little things and goes back to being Jojo Diaz.
Ultimately, you know what? I've been able to analyze that fight a little bit for the last 48 hours, and I thought to myself, you know what? He has a new baby, and I'm talking a newborn. I think the baby's a month or two old. He's got a new baby, and he probably stayed, obviously because of COVID, he stayed close to home. He wasn't going to be out training somewhere else, which is probably why he didn't go train over with Joel Diaz, because Joel Diaz probably would have wanted him to stay out there in the Coachella Valley somewhere, because that's a long drive to go from El Monte, wherever Jojo lives. He used to live here in Glendora, but I think El Monte all the way to Coachella, that's an hour and a half one way with no traffic. So, in hindsight, okay, his baby's been born, healthy. Now his next fight, he'll be able to focus. I don't think he's going to go back with Joel Diaz, but I think maybe if he does have to get away and get away, even if it's for the last couple of weeks of camp, he could do all the conditioning, or vice versa, whoever he needs to do to make weight. If he can't be around the wife when, put on the, what they call the pregnancy weight or whatever. But I mean, they got to cut the guy some slack, and somebody there at Golden Boy needs to
They
make
just
a
step
phone,
up and speak up and protect their commodity.
exactly, make a
Jojo
phone
Diaz.
call.
Jojo Diaz isn't an up and comer. He's not a veteran with 1 foot out the door. He's not a guy that still needs to prove himself. He's one of your stars. You better step up.
And he's got one loss.
Yeah, and he's going to look elsewhere. I
He's
mean, the
gonna
guy
look
completely feels he believes he's disrespected. Like you said, I wasn't aware.
This is proof positive that he's disrespected because, like I said, somebody needs to come to his defense. De La Hoya should do an interview and go, I don't appreciate how they're talking about JoJo, this and that and this and that, but it's cricket.
Yeah, because Oscar's so quick to defend Ryan Garcia and everybody else, but and the problem is, let's be honest. A guy like Jojo Diaz has already experienced a defeat. And it was a devastating defeat. It was a competitive defeat against probably one of the top 3 pound-for-pound fighters in the world in Gary Russell Jr., a guy whose only loss was to the great Vasily Lomachenko.
The only thing that keeps him from being a top pound-for-pound fighter right now is inactivity. Yeah. But at that point in his life, he was definitely in the top 10.
And he's still good. But I mean, the point that I'm saying is that Jojo had that situation, show that he can be competitive even in loss. Now let's turn the pendulum over to Ryan Garcia. I don't see this guy being that type of fighter. He gets knocked out, obviously got off the ground in his last fight, but let's say for some reason he gets that Tank Davis fight and Tank Davis knocks him out the way he knocked Leo Santa Cruz. All the damage control Oscar could do in the world is not going to change the fact that is an exposed fighter. JoJo's not an exposed fighter. You got a legitimate star there, and you better appreciate it, or he's got to find a new freaking
platform,
a new backyard to kick back and have a barbecue and a beer. I'm telling you, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like I've said this before, I don't understand why they don't push this guy more. I mean, he's that happy-go-lucky. He's got that big smile. He's a Southern California kid, Mexican-American.
He's not a big social. They're really big on these social media guys. JoJo's not like that.
He's a blood and guts guy. He's stand right there and trade. You're never going to see Jojo Diaz hightail it and run from a fight. He's going to stand right there and trade with whoever he's in the ring with. And I mean, he's got that smile to him, that smile, but then he can get a little bit, I don't want to use the term ghetto, but he can get a little bit rough around the edges.
He's got the edge there. He's from he's from an El Monte. It's no different than being from La Puente. We're from that area. We know.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Hey, no problem, bro. No problem.
Sorry, I was actually shoveling snow for the neighbor next door, the elderly lady, wonderful lady. She just needed to be able to
No excuse. This is Enter the Ring.
Hey.
Hey, that's all right. That's all right. We were just talking. We were just finishing talking about.
And that's my brother Eric. That's the kind of heart that my brothers. That's why I love my 2 brothers, bro. They're the other kind of guys.
Helping the elderly lady next door.
I wouldn't even pick up the shit in my neighbor's yard. Believe me.
So Eric, what we touched on briefly is we talked about the Tim Tszyu Dennis Hogan fight. It was just signed. It was just announced at the press conference yesterday, and then
that's good.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about Jojo Diaz and that article that I sent you guys, and AJ brought it up on the screen about how we feel that Golden Boy, his promoter, needs to step up and do some damage control and actually put a spin on it and make a phone call to boxing scene or these writers and go, hey, why are you always tearing my guy down?
Yeah, yeah.
Totally. A matter of fact, I think even when he beat Tevin Farmer, the articles that came out were, they don't feel it was the best version of Tevin Farmer.
I was just about to say that same thing.
I don't understand. And you know what that is? That's Matchroom. That's Eddie Hearn putting that spin on it, right? Yeah. Making his phone calls and calling in the favor and saying, hey guys, this is what I need you to do. I need you to spin this because Tevin's my guy. I paid Devin a pretty sizable bonus to come sign with Matchroom and to fight on my platform. Well, Oscar and Golden Boy needs to do the same. Or if it was JoJo, if his contract was up, I would tell him to hightail it and leave. I would tell him to go jump over to the PBC where he's going to get paid a lot more than he's getting paid right now.
So, he should be getting more money. He should be getting 6 figures. But the bigger issue is this is a trend in boxing. There's certain fighters, and I know I use his name quite a bit, but he's the quickest example I could find. Jaime Munguia, who's on the DAZN thing. I can't remember one fight when Jaime Munguia, even when he won the world title, gets the credit that he deserves. Guys like Sergio Mora and these others always nitpick the little things and don't look at the fact that he beats these guys and he beats them convincingly. And I'm like, what does a guy have to do? What does he have to do to get in your good graces?
The one blemish he has on his record, the controversial fight, was, of course, the Dennis Hogan fight. No excuses. I think if you even talk to Jaime today, he's going to make no excuses. It wasn't his best performance. He was a champion. It was a close fight. It really was. And it shouldn't have been that close, but it is what it is. He had I
think the weight issues had a lot to do with it, like you talked about before too. It was killing him.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I would say like a week or two prior to the fight, nobody thought he was even going to make weight.
Yeah.
He just was physically just growing. He's 24 years old now. He was 23 at the time. He had just turned 23. His body's just growing. But anyways, that's a whole nother discussion. But in closing on that subject, people need to come to Jojo Diaz's fence and lift this guy up, man, because I think he's good for boxing.
Yeah,
He's
I
great for
do.
boxing, man.
I agree.
He really is, bro.
I do.
I agree. I didn't like that damn decision either.
Well, that's the sad thing is that it's like, what do they want? Do they want Jojo Diaz to freaking hang himself in a back room or something? Is that going to make them feel good? At that, I almost feel like that's the kind of society that we live in, that you break a man down. What happened to picking your brother up? What happened to picking, an athlete up? They don't have a problem doing it if Tom Brady has a bad football game. His fans stand behind him and support him. But Jojo Diaz has a bad night where he still won. He wasn't the complete Jojo Diaz. And the media is doing everything in their power to just tear this guy's mentally. I just know, I hope, and you know better than me, Mike, that Jojo just turns it off. Turn that TV off. Don't listen to anybody and just get back in the gym. Take a little time off. Spend some time with your family. Have a barbecue with your dad. Have one last great meal. And then get out there and do what you got to do, man. And prove them all wrong in a devastating manner.
Shut him up.
Yeah, Eric, we were talking about, obviously we covered the Josh Warrington fight on Sunday and how devastating that was.
Yeah.
I have yet to see an article that started that saying after Josh Warrington's devastating weekend. I mean,
nope.
That was devastating to get knocked out by somebody that really is really didn't even, well, on paper didn't really belong in the same ring with the Josh Warrington, a former world champion who was moving.
They're not going to give that kid any credit.
It was 30-0 and the whole works. Yeah.
Yeah.
If anything, that kid, the worst thing he could have done was beat Josh Warrington. Because what's going to happen now? He's never going to venture back over to the UK. They're going to do everything they can. They'll strip him of that title, and then the kid.
Well, he didn't win a title. He didn't win a title.
No, but what I'm saying is that of his position, he's just going to wait.
Yeah.
They're going to have some cancellations. They're going to let this kid get rusty, and then they're going to throw him in with some guy that's way over. That's just their MO. Instead of them look at the fact, 22-year-old kid comes up here and beats our brash mouth, 30-0, former world champion. Who, I'll be honest with you, like I said, I went back and watched the fight a couple more times, and I'm going to continue to say it. It was that long. He was like, he catches him at the end of the punch with power, dude. I loved it, dude. It was great because that's a hard fighter to fight, even though he's not the most
elusive.
His skills aren't the sharpest. You know what I'm saying?
He's just tough.
He's just a tough guy, and he throws those punches, and it's almost like a combination between Munguia and Navarrete. It's crazy, man, but it worked.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, imagine him and Navarrete. I mean, because that fight was at 130. Imagine that. That'd be a hell of a fight because Navarrete is moving up.
I'll be honest with you. I don't see Emmanuel Navarrete taking a fight against this guy. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Navarrete is afraid of anybody. But because this guy is so tough, he's the type of guy, he showed a solid chin, that kind of stuff. Navarrete has never been in there with a guy like that. He's always looking for, let's be honest, it's usually guys coming up in weight or something else. He hasn't really been in there with the monsters yet. And so I still want to see that,
Yeah. So anyways, let's go ahead and discuss, obviously the main event that's coming up on Saturday. AJ, you had said earlier that, let's just cross our fingers. We're 5 days away. We're 4 days away from the weigh-in.
I'm excited. I know.
I'm sorry, 3 days away. 3 days away from the weigh-in. What today's Tuesday? So 3 days away from the weigh-in. The fight's in 4 days. Both guys, they did the weight check about a week or so ago. I saw they were both hovering right around 136. So they both look like they're on track to make weight with no problem. Man, this is a fight that more and more people are starting to talk about now. I'm seeing more and more stuff on social media. I was listening to Sirius Radio today. They were talking about the fight. I think we've all kind of given our take on what we think is going to happen. I'm sticking to my prediction of Berchelt winning by stoppage, but prior to the stoppage, I think it's going to be one of the most exciting fights. If it goes 4 rounds, if it goes 6 rounds, if it goes 8 rounds, whatever it goes, I think it's going to be one of the most exciting fights we've seen in a long time. It's going to be kind of like if it can be half as exciting as the Berchelt Chon Cepeda fight, we're in for a freaking treat.
Tell me this, Mike. What is it on Berchelt that you think is something that hopefully he's improved on based on his past performances that Oscar Valdez might be able to expose?
Well, the one thing about Berchelt is he's hittable. He doesn't have the greatest defense. Now, he does have a decent chin, but You know, Oscar Valdez is going to be swinging for the fences. He's going to put every ounce of everything into every one of those punches he throws. He is not going to be no love taps coming from Oscar.
Yeah.
I think Berchelt's physically, naturally the stronger man. I saw him one time in Vegas at the fights, and he's just wide for a guy 130 pounds. He's just really solid. He's one of those guys that you say, man, how does he make 130?
It reminds me of Cuellar. Remember Cuellar? Kind of that burly, real muscular.
Yeah.
Not muscular, just kind of that boxy, kind of strong look and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, but he's actually pretty muscular though. If you look, well, mostly his back's real muscular. I don't know if that's where the power is generated from or what, but and Oscar obviously used to fight at 126. He's now fighting at 130. I mean, it's only 4 pounds, but you know, when the guys are that small, 4 pounds does make a difference. I think Oscar's going to give it everything he's got. And I'm not if Oscar wins this fight Saturday, it won't surprise me because I think he's very capable. I'm just still leaning a little bit more towards Berchelt being able to finish what some other fighters couldn't do with Valdez. So the Filipino guy, Cervena, Adam Lopez, guys that have dropped him and hurt.
I actually got something I want to say about that Adam Lopez fight, if you don't mind me chiming in. Then, Eric, I want to get the same take from you on what you think.
Okay.
I went back and I watched the Adam Lopez fight against Oscar Valdez because that was a fight that kind of got cut in when I didn't get a chance. I got to be honest with you. Oscar Valdez, Adam Lopez was well on his way to winning a very comfortable fight. Most of the ringside people felt the same way.
Yeah.
Adam Lopez looked phenomenal. He got caught, but that stoppage was ill-advised. That was the fastest, most ridiculous stop. Go back and watch it. That was Adam Lopez was not happy. They should not. A competitive fight. There was literally a second left in the round, and it was ridiculous. He got hit. He went back.
Who was the referee? It was Vegas. It was in Vegas, right? So it was in Vegas.
I can't remember what. But
Robert Bird or somebody.
Absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. I felt so bad. I thought to myself, I wonder if that what kind of turned the tide on Adam Lopez, because a victory there, it's Berchelt and Adam Lopez. And I think a lot of people will be singing a different tune because Adam Lopez the kid was complete. Go back and watch the fight. Everything he was doing was absolutely perfect. Now, Berchelt, on the other hand, he does things well. Nothing great, I don't think. He's got that. He's
not real flashy. No, he's
got good power and stuff like this. He throws kind of a weird jab. He doesn't have, the angles and stuff, and he doesn't have that.
He's a little bit stiff from the waist up. He's a little bit robotic
too. He's a little slow too, and that's the other thing that I think was going to be an issue because when I went back and watched his fight against Berchelt's fight against Francisco Vargas. Vargas is not somebody who's nowhere near the speed that Oscar Valdez has. And Vargas was hitting Berchelt at will. Now, that's another fight that was stopped way too fast. The Berchelt Vargas fight, because some of the people had Vargas winning that fight going to the 11th round when he got stopped. Now, obviously, everybody knows what happens in the second fight. Berchelt was more dominating and stopped him early.
Yeah.
But that's going to be that's where my thing is with Berchelt. I think it's just going to be he's not very fleet of foot. He's easy to hit. And how many of those punches, I know he's got a great chin, but how many can he just take over and over and over again? And I think it's going to be the one he doesn't see that's going to be the one that's going to kind of change the tide of the fight. What do you think, Eric?
I think that's what I said last time. I said he's going to be caught by something. I think he'll probably still end up winning Berchelt anyway, but I think he is going to get caught. And because Michael, like you said, he is hittable.
Very hittable. I mean, both guys are hittable. That's what makes it exciting.
But we'll see what he does.
They're both going to have brain damage when they get older.
And we'll see if his opponent could actually capitalize on it. I mean, this is going to be a great fight. So if anybody's out there and they're not sure about this fight, they need to watch this fight.
I was watching. Go ahead, Bart.
You know what's actually, to me, probably the biggest injustice for this fight is that Oscar Valdez has been in some high profile fights. Okay. He's been in some, I mean, he's not a household name, but he's very well known in boxing. He's
Adam Lopez, Jason Sanchez, been in there with Scott Quigg and Genesis of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. He's fought everywhere. Vegas, LA,
Mariaga, you name it.
Now for Berchelt, I mean, he's kind of just flown under the radar. I mean, obviously that comes from the fact that, his promoter's not based here in the States. He's with Zanfer Promotions. They're out of Tijuana, Mexico. But it's like, this is like his highest profile fight. This is like his coming out party. So there'll be a little bit of pressure on him now, pressure on him in Vegas.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Mike.
Do you guys know what the purse is on this?
The purses for both fighters? No, it's probably not nowhere near. If this fight was on PBC, they'd be probably each be making $1 million. I'm gonna guess they're making nowhere near that.
Can I say something on that? What you just elaborated on, Mike? Because that was a great point.
Yeah.
That I wasn't really looking at. This is the highest profile opponent Miguel Berchelt has faced. Even when you go back and you look at the fact that he's faced guys like Jason Sosa, who's a good fighter, Francisco Vargas, who's a good fighter, and the veteran Miguel Roman, those are about the best names on his thing.
Yeah.
And the point is, there was a point about a year ago when I didn't even think Oscar Valdez wanted this fight. I really thought he was going to do everything in his power to kind of steer away from Miguel Berchelt, even venturing up to maybe 135 or going back down. But the last interview I saw with Oscar Valdez, he made that same point. He said, listen, everybody's talking about he's a monster. He does this, he does that. He's like, I come to fight. I'm not going to make any predict. I'm just going to go in there and do what I've always done. And God, for some reason, whenever I hit the ground, he helps me back up. He said, but once again, I'm going to say it. The fighters Oscar's been fighting is why these fights have been so nasty. If Miguel Berchelt all of a sudden goes in this fight and gets thoroughly dominated, you know, it's not a big knock on Berchelt, because I'm going to be honest with you. Like you said, flying under the radar sometimes isn't a good thing in the sense if you haven't fought anybody. And if Jason Sosa, Francisco Vargas, and Miguel Roman are the best on your resume and stuff like this, you never know.
Well, they're not exactly preparing him for what Oscar's going to bring.
He's a different monster.
Yeah, let's just be honest. So
I go back, if you people get a chance, and watch the Scott Quigg Oscar Valdez fight. Scott Quigg, anybody who doesn't know anything about this guy, tough as nails. Scott Quigg
and missed weight bad. So Valdez
super heavy. Balls to the wall, blood battle. When Scott Quigg, after the decision was rendered, found out that Oscar Valdez had broken his jaw in the 5th round, the look on his face when he looked at Valdez and says, wow, I got to take my head off. He's all, I can't believe that. I hit this guy, and this guy was still there. He's all, that's a strong-minded person to get your jaw broken against a big hitter like Quigg and still just keep doing it. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah.
I think Valdez is, I know he's the underdog. I don't know what the current odds are. If we had Neil Liner, maybe be able to tell us.
Maybe we should put $100.
He's a live underdog. He's a live underdog.
It wouldn't be hard to throw a quick bet.
That's why this has been good, because we've kind of brought some different angles that a lot of people aren't really talking about.
Yeah.
Like I said before, go ahead, Eric.
Call Neil and tell him to. I'll Venmo.
What are the odds? Hey, Mike, look it up. See, what are the odds right now on the Valdez fight?
Oh, Eric, you look it up. I don't even have one of those programs on my phone.
But the one thing, like I said, Eric, I don't know if you remember, but I was telling Mike that one of the things I noticed was the fact that Valdez, you know, he's knocked down, whether or not he stopped the guy or not, but he's pretty much knocked down every opponent that's got in the ring with them. You know, he's coming off of what? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight knockouts, you know? And, you know, I know Berchelt didn't look all that great against that Valenzuela kid in Mexico, but then again, that Valenzuela could have just been a really good fighter that just.
Yeah. Now, we said this last week. We don't want to put too much emphasis on the Reynosos and, you know, what they're able to change. Because at the end of the day, when these guys get into the ring, they kind of revert back to what they're going to do. The one thing I will say that Valdez, the advantage that he does have is he has been in camp with Canelo.
Yeah.
And Canelo works hard.
He's been working with Canelo a lot for this fight.
He's got the support of Canelo. He's been working with Ryan Garcia. I'm quite sure those guys have been in the ring sparring quite a bit. And if anything, you know, Ryan Garcia, you know, obviously fights at a higher weight, but if anything, that will give him the ability to fight somebody taller, give him the you know, basically acclimate to fighting a taller fighter, and no doubt a faster fighter. Ryan Garcia, no doubt, is a lot faster than Miguel Berchelt. So if he's able to, you know, to learn from just watching Canelo and picking up on what Canelo does, how he trains, the work ethic, and if he can incorporate that into, that's what I think makes Valdez a live dog. Like I said, I still think Berchelt wins the fight, but if Valdez wins this fight, whether he outboxes Berchelt or wins by some dramatic, you know, rally, comeback, knockout, it will not surprise me. This is a true pick 'em fight for me. I
am too. I mean, like I said, I honestly was leaning towards Berchelt really early on, because there was something about Oscar Valdez that just kind of gave me like this, how some people portray Canelo sometimes, this diva attitude, almost like I'm going to fight. But then I started to really.
No, he is the furthest thing from that.
No, but what I'm saying is that he's looking into it. If Canelo Alvarez, obviously the fact they're stablemates, they are working together. And I'm sure without even having to pick Canelo Alvarez's brain, the one thing Canelo would have a knock on Oscar Valdez that they worked on more than anything was not his output, but his elusiveness and how to move. He's probably going to take a page on what he did when he fought against Gennady Golovkin the second time, even though he was in front of him. You can't hurt what you can't hit. You could still throw a velocity of punches with bad intentions and still know how to roll the punches and move.
Roll with them, yeah.
And if he could do that against Miguel Berchelt and frustrate him, who knows? But then again, Oscar Valdez being knocked down, has he ever faced somebody who hits as hard? And does Miguel Berchelt hit his hard as they're saying he does?
I think he's strong. I think his knockout ratio. What has he got? 33 knockouts.
33 and 37 fights.
Yeah, so only 4 guys have lasted. He's got 1 loss, right, early in his career or something. But
yeah, he lost. He actually was stopped in the first round, and back in 2014 against Luis Flores, he got stopped in the first round.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was something that we haven't really talked about. So I would actually be interested. So I'm going to go back and see if I can find anything on that.
Watch that fight. Watch some highlights from that fight.
Because the fact that he was stopped early. I mean, he was stopped in a 10-rounder against this kid that came in that was 15-1 at the time. Yeah, that's shocking.
Yeah. So
and then but then again, you got Valdez, who I'm sorry guys, I don't have my glass on. 22 knockouts. So they both have. This is a huge knockout ratio. I'm gonna turn it over, bro. It's not going the distance. This fight is not going the distance.
The over and under is 9.5 rounds. So
for who?
The over and under. So
over and under. So it's either 9.5 rounds or
I would bet the under on that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would bet
the over on Valdez, bet the under on Berchelt. But I'm sure Berchelt's got to be the favorite. I believe he was what, a 2-1 or 3-1 favorite, something like that.
It's he's at 340.
He's at minus 340.
Minus 340, yeah.
So that's like 3.5 to 1, right? 3.5 to 1. I mean, those odds might tighten up as we get closer to fight day.
They actually have already tightened up. He started out at 4-1, and now it's down to 3-1.
They might bet him. I mean, if he looks good at the weigh-in, Valdez, and we'll see.
I hope they don't. I want to drop a couple. I want to drop a little Mickey Dick on there and stuff like this, and hopefully win a little something. Daddy needs it.
Get a hold of Neely. We gotta.
Yeah, we will.
I'll throw some money your way too. So.
No, but so what else we got? So before we get out, I know we're what else we got coming up, Mike, on the boxing scene coming up in the future?
Well, on the undercard of the fight on Saturday is the kid Gabriel Flores. He's actually stepping up in competition, fighting a veteran. I forgot who he's fighting, but I know the guy he's fighting has over 30 fights. Gabriel Flores is the kid that top ranks real high on the 130 pounder.
Can't stand him.
I got to be honest with you. I don't buy it. I don't know what they're looking at with the kid. I mean, how many times are we going to be reminded?
He's actually fighting Jason Velez, who actually fought Oscar Valdez at one point. Jason Velez was actually a good prospect at one time.
But he's got to be on the slide though, right? Velez?
Oh yeah, he's been on the slide. Jason Velez has been on the slide since.
So this is a showcase fight for Gabriel Flores, right?
Back when he lost a 10-round decision to Ryan Garcia back in 2018.
So Gabriel Flores is the kid he's out of NorCal, I believe, and it's just I mean the story of him.
So when his mom got shot, right, or something.
His mom died in violently, some kind of gang violence or something, which is a tragedy. It's horrible, but turn the page already.
Turn it.
If people want to watch that, they'll turn a soap opera on, or they'll just turn on the nightly news. People don't care about fighting, and I gotta be honest with you, I don't see much in the kid at all. No. He got hurt. Did he get dropped and hurt in his last fight against somebody?
He had against Konowski. He had a terrible fight. Yeah.
The kid to me is very hittable.
Well, he's gonna have a problem. He's gonna have a problem with Velez too, because one thing that Velez does, even though he's slipping and he's sliding, he's still got those 21 knockouts in 29 fights. He's got power. So if he can kind of get it together, put it together, who knows? He could be a live underdog too. You never know.
Flores reminds me of the kid out of Riverside, Neno Rodriguez, I think was his name a couple years ago, who was a Mayweather guy, and then he had a split with Mayweather, but he was undefeated, and then he went out there and he fought a guy he was supposed to steamroll, and he got knocked out. He has not fought since.
Yeah.
Do you remember the name Neno? It was a couple years ago. He has not fought since.
Sometimes when a boxer faces that type of adversity, they just don't survive. And that's actually kind of sad. Had that somebody like that had a trainer that, worked with him, after that, even just a little bit to help build his confidence back up. Somebody, a family unit, a group of guys that would, go around him.
Well, I think he was being trained by his father. I believe his dad was training him. Robert Alcazar actually even worked one of his fights one time. He was there. They asked Robert to be the second in the corner, so he was just there as an assistant. And in fact, he never worked with the kid, but they had him. They said, "Hey, Robert, will you work this fight with us?" And I think he had another fighter on that card. But I asked him about Neno, and he says, "I haven't heard anything. Like the kid hasn't fought yet. He hasn't fought since he got stopped." It happens. AJ, you and I know a couple fighters. This was over a year ago.
Yeah,
A year and a half going on 2 years ago is when he fought and lost. But there's a lot of fighters that we've come across in the last few years that,
sadly, that reminds me what it reminds me of kind of, and it's funny because the guy actually, we didn't get a chance to really even talk about him at our last one, and that was Ronnie Rios when he beat Diego De La Hoya.
On
that undercard, Oscar De La Hoya had a kid out of Mexico that was fighting his first fight here in the States. The kid was coming in at 28-0. Eduardo Hernandez. You should have seen this guy's entourage. It was ridiculous. I thought I was seeing Julio Cesar Chavez coming to the damn ring. And it just so happened he was fighting a guy that night by the name of Roger Gutierrez, who used to be under De La Hoya until he suffered a couple losses and then he kind of got thrown out.
Yeah.
So this was an opportunity where he was matched up against Golden De La Hoya's new hot boy against his once hot boy that he just kind of cast out. Long story short, Gutierrez had different plans. Why Hernandez was too busy feeling himself, looking at the crowd, shaking and shivering, he didn't see the right hand. And about 27 seconds into the fight was over. And Gutierrez, if you get a chance, I'll send you the link. But you gotta watch it.
I'm gonna go watch. That was on DAZN this past weekend. That was from Fantasy Springs.
No. This was on the undercard of the Ronnie Rios, Diego De La Hoya fight.
Oh, okay.
This is some time ago. I'm making the point that that's the same situation that we're looking at right now with this kid Flores, where he's a hot kid. He's coming in, he's feeling himself a little bit, and he's going against a guy who used to be under De La Hoya, who's been cast out and just given an opportunity as an opponent. But he might come in with different intentions.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, boxing's very strategic. I mean, these guys, they put these guys in there with guys they're supposed to beat. But like anything can happen. I mean, anything can happen. I mean, the guy's got a puncher's chance, and Gabe Flores has not shown. In addition to his last fight, he's been, I think, hurt multiple times in his last few performances. And I just think he's waiting to crash and burn. He's one good left hook away from just being, story coming to an end.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, bro. And the way I look at it too is that there's a rash of fighters like that right now. You can look at Beranga. I mean, these guys are beating, people that barely have a pulse, and all of a sudden they're elevating themselves to Roberto Duran stands.
Speaking of Berlanga, I don't know if you recently saw this. This is off topic, but we can just talk about rumors and stuff for the last few minutes. David Benavidez is flat out. He put him on blast and says, I knocked him out in sparring. And apparently there's footage of it and pictures of it.
Yeah.
He knocked out Berlanga in sparring, and he says, I'll fight this guy anytime he wants to go in the fight. And of course, Berlanga is going to, use the standard, the standard template defense as well. That was then. This is now, or whatever. Since then, I have not seen him. He has not made it out of the first round, so I don't know where the improvement is.
I'm going to keep going back and talk about what I talked about before. When somebody's so focused on just ending somebody in the first round, they're going to make the kind of mistakes because they're looking at the clock and they're not looking at their opponent. They want to make sure that he wants that record. You know what I'm saying? Like what Tyrone Brunson did, and Tyrone Brunson ended up walking into Calvin Sparrow, which, ended up ending him that day and stuff. But there was another fight on the 20th too. And that's that undefeated kid out of the UK, Josh Kelly. Have you heard about that fight?
Oh, Josh Kelly.
Against David Anabesian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be a good fight.
It'll be a good fight. Anabesian's had his setbacks, but I'm going to tell you now, he's a tough guy. And to be honest with you, Josh Kelly has not looked good in his last few outings at all. No. He has not looked good at all. He's another guy.
I know what I wanted to talk about. They said it again today. I read something again today that Bob Arum, he said he's having all kinds of problems with Teofimo Lopez, but he says he wants to match Teofimo up against the winner against Ramirez Taylor. He's hoping it will be Ramirez because Taylor is probably this will be his last fight at 140. I think if he unifies, gets all three belts at 140, Josh Taylor, I think he moves up to 147.
Not if he's going to get a chance to get Teofimo Lopez. I'm sure he'll stick around because he wants that fight.
But here's the problem with that though. Teofimo Lopez is not in line to fight.
No.
No.
Sean Cepeda is.
Much like we talked about how they were saying, whoever's the winner of this Castano versus Teixeira fight, Terrence Bud Crawford's waiting in the wings. Tim Zoo's completely being overlooked, and then now in this case, Sean Cepeda is being overlooked. I don't know why these guys think they could just leapfrog people and I mean, guys like Sean Cepeda are not just going to take some little chump change to walk away and be like, yeah, I'll take step aside money. They are not going to do it. They have earned the right to get that title shot.
Yeah, that's once again another situation, and it's sad too, because you know what, Chone's coming off a highlight reel of a victory, and the way he ended it, I mean, you couldn't have written it better, as far as and scored a $500 million movie. And it's sad because you're seeing more and more of that. And it's just terrible, man. These guys, like I said, the mandatory sense of being number one contender means nothing in boxing anymore.
I know it means nothing anymore. I mean, it means nothing anymore. I mean, I saw something. I think it was my buddy Mike. He did a video where he was talking about mandatories, how they just need to eliminate that whole terminology from boxing, because, like you said, it doesn't mean shit. I mean, and these are fighters that have never even fought it that way. They're already talking about Teofimo getting a shot at 140. Never fought it that way. They're talking about Bud Crawford getting a shot at 154. Never fought it that way. Meanwhile, you got guys that are fighting at that weight, fighting everybody they're supposed to fight to beat, that the organization sanctions them to fight. This is who you need to fight next to be the number one contender. They're doing it, winning the fights, and now they got to sit back and go, oh, but you're going to let this guy just come up in my division and leapfrog me?
I want to ask Eric something real quick. Eric, do you agree with me with this?
What?
The only way that fighters like Sean Cepeda, Tim Tszyu, and others that are put in this situation that are the mandatory are going to get stepped over, they have to put their neck out, step their foot down, raise their fists, and demand it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying be disrespectful, but your voice has got to be heard. You've got to go on every platform and say, this is fucking bullshit. I'm the number one man. I've earned it. But if you stay cool and quiet and stay all nice and stuff, it's going to go nowhere. They're going to walk over you. I told my wife this the other day. She was having a situation or something. I said, you know what? Like our new show coming up, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah.
Because the people that are supposed to be nice treat us like shit. So whatever it is, if you're a mandatory contender, you fought all those battles to get there. Why would you just be quiet now and let them just walk right past you? Fight for it.
Especially if you taking step aside money takes away your momentum. If you have to wait an extra additional.
If you accept step aside money, then you get exactly what you deserve. You didn't want it in the first place. Sean Cepeda will not accept $100 million. He wants that fight. Does he want Taylor? Absolutely. But who does he really want? He wants Ramirez. He wants to make an example of this man.
Yeah, because he feels he won the fight, and a lot of people that night couldn't say it because because he was the outsider, the B side, whatever. But yeah,
not anymore.
Yeah.
What do you think, Eric? What's your take on that?
No, I agree 100%. I mean, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yeah.
You've got to stand for. I mean, as a fighter, fight. I mean, fight in the ring, fight out of the ring when you need to. You know what I mean?
I'm going to tell you,
you have to be your own voice.
Back in the old days, do you think a guy like Mustafa Hamshaw
take step aside money?
I mean, do you think a guy like Mustafa Hamshaw, John Mugabe, James Schuler, you can go on and on. Do you think that these guys would take step aside money or step aside when they got elevated to that number one status? They got the fight. Didn't make no difference. The only way that champion in that fight wasn't fought is if that guy retired, died, or ran to another division. And he was ostracized for that. And believe me, okay? That doesn't happen anymore. These guys got to face the number one contender, or rankings are irrelevant.
Yeah, rankings at this point are irrelevant, bro. I mean,
man.
I mean, it's I'm being rhetorical.
It's a popularity contest now.
It's rankings are a phone call away.
You know what it is now, bro? It's a strategic. You made this comment before. Both you guys did. It's a strategic chess match. You take the ones. So let's say you have a contender, a young guy coming up, hasn't quite broken in where he needs to be. You look at the actual opponents that you need. Maybe you take this guy that's just below the top 15. Then you take this guy that was in the top 10 at one moment, lost a few fights. He's on the decline. Then you take him. That's what they do, man. It's like this chess match until they get that one key opponent. It could be a guy who's lost his last 4 fights, but he fought for a world title 2 divisions down 3 years ago.
Yeah, they used to call them gatekeepers,
Ridiculous,
they used to call them gatekeepers. Yeah, but you're right. We need the number one contenders. If you're not going to honor it, then just do away with the rankings. Just do away with it. That's how I feel.
I mean, you guys are obviously well more versed in all of this over the years. But is it just me, or do I notice that fighters are going in at one weight and then switching and then switching and then switching, much more prevalent?
I love Manny Pacquiao. I hate to say it, man.
It was,
he made it popular. Catch weights. Catch weights.
Oh, you mean catch weights? Yeah.
Let me tell you right now, back in the old days, what Teofimo did against Lomachenko, he would have never got all 3 belts. You have to earn them. Now today, they just hand them over to you. And then they got another 2 on the fire that they're getting ready to press and give to you at a later date. The bottom line is, when Manny Pacquiao was fighting for, Mayweather did the same thing, fighting for a title, and then he's got another title that's attached to it. And he's not even in that weight division. This is ridiculous, man.
Well, Sugar Ray Leonard did it first. Remember when he fought Donnie Lalonde? I think he was the first person in history to fight for 2 separate titles in one night. It was ridiculous.
The middleweight and the super middleweight, right?
Yeah.
See,
ridiculous.
I knew you guys would know.
No, but the reason I was asking you, bro, is because it's like this. Let's say you're standing in line, okay, to get food, and you're hungry. You've been hungry for all day.
Yeah, this is
you're one person there, and some son of a bitch just walks by and stands right in front of you. What are you going to tell that guy?
You knock the shit out of him first off.
Yeah, dude, you ain't taking my spot in line.
Then
I'm
why
here to
do
eat.
these fighters just step aside and allow this to happen? You got to speak up. Fuck your management, your trainer, everybody. You got to be the man. You're the one that took the hits, that worked his ass off, sacrificed his life, his health, and his safety to be there. If you don't fight for it, then you never really wanted it. Because I'll be telling you right now, if I was fighting and I was number 1 contender, no son of a bitch is going to get that shot over me. Nobody.
I'm going to go to the press conference. I'm going to go to the weigh-in. I'm going to call people out. That's a great analogy, bro. It is.
Do like a Clubber Lang type thing. You know what I mean?
I'm telling you, man. I'm tired of it, bro,
because
just based on what I've seen in the last few years, I do not see a guy like Jones Zepeda doing what Deontay Wilder did. The biggest disappointment I've had in Deontay Wilder is not his loss to Tyson Fury. Take it like a man. It's his fact that he took step-aside money to allow Fury to fight Joshua. That's bullshit. If Deontay wants to elevate himself and call himself the best, you had your opportunity. You just handed it to a guy who doesn't deserve it.
AJ, and you know why he did that, right? Why? Okay, you just said it a minute ago. You said if you do that, there's one reason why.
You don't want it.
He doesn't want to fight him.
No, he doesn't.
He does not want to fight Tyson Fury again.
Nope.
See, the difference is, in this situation, Mike's got Jones Zepeda on speed dial. And believe me this, I don't even need to hear it out of Chone's mouth. Chone will not step aside. He will fight for it. If Teofimo Lopez wants that fight, he needs to go through Jones Zepeda. So I got a better scenario. How about Teofimo Lopez fight Jones Zepeda, and then the winner of that fight fights the winner of Josh Taylor and Ramirez? There's a great freaking 2 bouts.
Hey, how about we try and get Chone on here?
I can get Chone on the. I was just talking to his brother yesterday. I was just talking to his brother
because I know Chone will say the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, he'll be more diplomatic about it, but he's
no. But we say that now, but it'd be like like Jojo Diaz. Let's be honest. When Jojo Diaz got his title shot against Tevin Farmer, they tried to do that same bullshit to him. They were trying to push him aside.
He did not take no for an
answer. He said, no, this is my fight. He took him to court. He fought and he held that spot.
Bro, he confronted him there at a fight.
Yeah.
I mean,
Jojo Diaz, that's what I'm talking about. So that's what I'm trying to make a point. If a fighter takes step aside money and they never really wanted to fight. But I'm going to tell you right now in this situation, even in Teofimo, I'm going to tell you now, Teofimo is blowing smoke. He doesn't want Ramirez and he doesn't want Taylor, and he definitely doesn't want to have that mandatory matchup with Jones Zepeda. It's all bullshit. He's going to be content fighting Cambasis and then fighting his clone and then fighting maybe Comey again or whatever. That's going to be his thing. And then maybe fight Ryan Garcia when Ryan Garcia gets knocked out by Tank Davis.
Well, they're already talking about that today. They're already laying the groundwork again for a rematch with Comey.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to fight anybody. He doesn't want to fight anybody. He doesn't want to fight Devin Haney. He doesn't want to give Lomachenko the rematch. He doesn't want to fight Ryan Garcia. He keeps saying these guys, they need to get to my level to fight me. It's like, well, how do you get to your level?
What's your level? I'm trying to understand what he means by his level. Okay, don't get me wrong.
That's why he's quickly becoming the laughing stock of boxing. Everybody's starting to see what this guy really is made of.
Well, yeah. I mean, I saw one guy was making a comment.
Bitch made, they used to
I saw a guy was making a comment about the fact that Teofimo Lopez is acting like he didn't just beat Lomachenko, that he's assumed Lomachenko's identity. So all the people that Lomachenko beat convincingly in such a masterful fashion, that he did that. No, you didn't. You beat Lomachenko on a bad night when he had a bad game plan for whatever reason. But I honestly think it was a very close fight. Could have been a draw, could have been whatever. But the bottom line is, if you're so confident that a world-class beating's coming to Lomachenko again, then why are you so hesitant to give him the opportunity that he granted you?
If you want the 10 million, which you're never going to get, but if you take the highest profile opponent, and that highest profile opponent would be a Lomachenko, because Lomachenko brings in international money too. It's not just domestic.
I'm sorry, one loss when you're number one pound for pound fighter and it's a close loss does not throw you out of any consideration. There should be no consideration. George Kambosos should not even be getting this fight. This should be Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez 2. There's no reason why that fight's not happening.
Yeah,
any other situation, it would have happened.
He's going to take the title. Man. He's going to take the title hostage.
Doesn't want to fight him again.
No,
he doesn't. He doesn't want to fight anybody.
Well, it's no different to like we talked about with Bud Crawford. Bud Crawford talks about going to 154, but only on two situations: whether he fights Manny Pacquiao or he fights against Patrick Teixeira. There was no mention of Jermell Charlo. There was no mention of Araceli Lara. There was no mention of Tim Tszyu, Jarrett Hurd, or any of these other guys. It's the weakest of the bunch. The dog or the sheep that's dragging ass in the back.
Yep.
What if fighters going to step up and start being who they're supposed to be? You're called a fighter, so you fight. It's not a negotiator. You want to be a negotiator, go talk somebody off a goddamn mountain or a fucking hill, whatever. Bullshit, man. It's just got to stop, man.
Yeah.
I love your analogies.
Yeah, the guy wants to be great, but you can't be great by fighting mediocre
dare to be
fighters.
Great is dare to take chances, man.
Yeah, we've said that before. I mean, a real fighter,
man. I'm so over these guys, man, and this bullshit, because I know what they're going to try to do. And when you got a soft-spoken kid like Tim Tszyu and a soft-spoken person in Sean Zepeda, no matter how vigorous and how powerful they are in the ring.
Tim Tszyu's not very soft-spoken, bro.
But I mean, you got to watch. You look at him; he looks like that schoolboy thing. So
no, he's very serious, man. He's very serious. When these guys say shit like he's a hyper, you can see it gets under his skin.
I'm just talking about with the ranking thing where they're going to try to sidestep, but they've already done it.
Yeah,
he's done it how many times now?
Yeah, he says I can't wait to get him in the ring to show him. He's because when you step in the ring and it's just me across from you, then all that talk goes out the window. Everything you did before,
Tim Tszyu should have already had the title. That should have been Tim Tszyu in the ring with Teixeira, not Brian Castano.
Yeah,
that's bullshit. Brian Castano didn't earn it. Tim Tszyu earned it. He's standing there. So somehow
Brian Castano didn't earn it. That's for damn sure.
He got it based on
a suspect draw against Araceli Lara, which he did not. Bullshit. That fight was not a draw.
And look what they've done to Araceli Lara. Okay, here's a guy that's had competitive fights against the best, like Canelo, Trout. You know what I'm saying? What he did, he won that fight against Castano, and he just gets cast out. He's looked like an opponent. This is a guy who, honestly, with next to Tim Tszyu and Jermell Charlo, can beat the shit out of everybody in that division. This is a guy who went toe to toe with the monster Jarrett Hurd. It's ridiculous, man, how they forget about these guys. But they put more talk into a comebacking, completely shot Austin Trout when you got all these other fighters that are just waiting in the wings to just get their shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
All they're doing is priming a victim. So what are you going to do? Bring back Austin Trout, then strip the title from Castano, and then let Bud Crawford fight Austin Trout for the vacant title? I guarantee it'll happen.
Something silly like that. I mean, like I said, it's a phone call away, dude. It's a phone call away.
They need to come up with
get on the horn. You need to start talking to people. Get some things handled, bro.
Eric, go ahead, Eric.
A better ranking system so that somebody can't just automatically, I'm going to go up 4 pounds and I'm going to be number 2 at that division or number 1 at that division. It's a bunch of bullshit. You move up right, bro. Guess what? You should be at best 11th.
I was looking for my prop. I was going to bring it out. I have my big money prop.
To do it.
It takes a lot of this. That's what. How Mike? What does it take to get?
It's all money. It's all money. But you know what? For the boxing fans and especially for the boxers themselves, it's not fair. If somebody is at 154 and they've been, that's their natural weight. That's where they're good and they're moving up the ranks and they're doing what they need to do. And then, like you said, to have somebody just come in and sidestep them, that's bullshit.
I have no problem with a champion from another division coming up and fighting champion other, but not for the titles.
No,
hell no.
And let's be honest. Right now,
take the third guy or the second, even the second guy.
Listen, a world contender. I don't care.
Listen, would anybody care when Floyd Mayweather fought Manny Pacquiao? Right? back in 2015, May of 2015. Did anybody, I bet you there's nobody on the planet other than those two guys that can even remember what belt or belts were on the line. At that point, the fight transcends the belts. There's no problem. I wouldn't mind seeing a Errol Spence at 147 go up and fight Canelo at 160, but not for the titles at 160. Let them have a mega fight. Who cares if the belt's there or not? What do they care?
They don't care.
Make their money and away they go.
Well, it's just like with the Floyd fight. Let's be honest. Floyd's another guy who's always positioned himself. He didn't get the best Manny. He knew it was the Manny that was coming off of these losses. When I don't understand why these guys just don't. The problem is I look at a guy like Jones Zepeda and I look at a guy like Tim Tszyu. The difference between them taking sidestep money compared to Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder's already a multimillionaire over and over again. They're not. Okay? They're not getting that kind of money. So if you're a fighter at that level that's worked that hard and you take money to step aside and they're not giving you millions, it doesn't make any sense because you might not get that chance. You might just take that warm-up fight and run into a guy like Lara, like Warrington did. You know
even worse than that, bro. It's not even step aside and finding another opponent. When you step aside, like for a guy like Zepeda, right? Okay, his fight was several months ago against Berchelt. Timing is everything. When you're on a hot streak and you know what I mean, you've won your last few fights and they've been super impressive. He beat Pedraza, then he beat the kid from Texas, from San Antonio, and then he beat Berchelt. Why would you basically stop your momentum? I mean, you're a snowball going down the hill. Why would you stop and just divert to the side and wait and then have to get that momentum going again? That centrifugal force is already going. You just got to go with it. Fighters need to stay active. This fighting every once a year and all that shit, that because then what happens? Then they say, well, he's got to knock the ring rust off and blah, 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 blah. You know? Well, the only way I would take step aside money is say, okay, I'll take step aside money. I get to choose my opponent. I'm fighting on the same card, so I stay active, and I want an equal amount that I was promised for this fight. You're going to pay me championship money to step aside. That's the only way I would take.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's a certain fighter that kicks himself in the ass because he took that step aside money, and that fighter was Regis Prograis. When he took step aside money to not fight Bud Crawford, and then he got into that thing, and he ended up fighting against Taylor later on. And that super, like it's a Super 6 or whatever, you know, he should have took his chance when he had it, but they didn't want Regis Prograis. They wanted Amir Khan, and they got Amir Khan because that was his voluntary, even though Prograis was fighting the fact that he was the next man in line, you know. And then what happened to Prograis? He went up, he lost that fight, you know, to Taylor. And it's a little bit of a rebuilding stage, but don't get me wrong, Regis Prograis is far from over.
Regis Prograis, he's on the right platform to rebuild. He's on the right.
Exactly.
He's on the right.
But if you couldn't go back and do it again, I guarantee you wouldn't make that mistake again.
Yeah.
When you've earned it, that's all I'm saying. And I know I get hot, but when you've earned it and you've worked so hard.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a question now. So, what do you think the trainers can do for the boxers to help keep them? You know.
You can answer that, Mike.
What do you mean?
He's talking about the trainers kind of convince the fighters.
So that they can fight these type of battles, the out of the ring battles.
What can they do for them? They can stay in the gym.
Stay in the gym.
They just got to stay in the gym.
No. I mean, do the trainers? I don't know. Do the trainers have any say in getting in with the boxers and actually fighting for their boxer?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, listen. When a fighter reaches a certain status, then it's promotion and management. Right now, if you're a young guy, you're a 4-rounder, you're a 6-rounder, and you don't have a big management, you're not signed to anybody. Yeah, but either way, like I'll give you an example. Like when Jaime Munguia was fighting with Robert, okay, he fought with Robert for like 5 or 6 fights, right? They would give Robert, okay, here's 3 names. Here's 2 names, which 3, it's usually 2, 3. Who do you guys want? We're going to make it this or this. And then they choose. But like I said, Jaime at that time was a world champion already.
Yeah.
So he's got the high profile. He was Hanford Promotions #1 fighter at the time. So that's how it works. But yeah, like I said, when they get to a higher level, guys like Floyd Mayweather, guys and world champions that are very well known, they make their own call. You know, and promoters have a big say in it. Of course, they're going to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to get you this fight. But then the next fight, you know, you're going to fight who I tell you to fight. and it's in
Yes.
it's in the contract. And if you don't want it, then you bust your contract, and then they tie you up in litigation, and then you do like Mikey Garcia. Like Mikey Garcia sat out of the ring for what? Well over 2 years to let his contract with Bob Arum expire, and now he's doing his own thing. So,
but I gotta admit though, it was a smart move by
lot of
Mikey
people
because he's making bigger money, and he got
everybody that has left Bob Arum has gone on to bigger and better things.
So anybody with Bob Arum, understand this.
Well,
right?
Bob Arum at this point only has two high-profile fighters, as far as I'm concerned. That I think he's got Teofimo Lopez and he's got Bud Crawford, both of which are you have some of their diehards, which is a very small minority, but the majority of the boxing public thinks they're a joke. Teofimo, as of lately, they didn't think he was a joke. Now they're saying the kid's a joke. He wants to say, "I want 10 million to fight whoever," and he's basically pricing himself out. So he's quickly becoming the butt of a lot of jokes.
Bud Crawford's doing the same thing.
Crawford's been doing that his whole career, offering chump change to guys like Sean Porter $1 million to fight when you just gave Kell Brook $2 million. Give me a break. Give me a break.
But he does that, Mike, because he knows that Sean's not going to accept that, and that gives him the excuse to say, "Well, Sean don't want me. He's afraid of me." No, Sean's been the one who's been coming after you. Even in Kell Brook's loss, at least the guy chased him everywhere and then finally
I promise you this. Sean Porter has made more in his career than Terrence Crawford. Guarantee you.
Yes, he
because
has.
What's reported that Sean Porter makes is not what he's really making. He even said that on his podcast a few weeks ago. I saw that. And he says, "I'm not going to get into specifics, blah, blah, blah." He's all, but we tell the public thinks they know what we make as fighters, but they don't know what we make. It's true. Why would you they say that's the one thing in life that you're never supposed to ask. You never ask a woman her age. You never ask somebody how much they make. And then you never ask somebody their political beliefs. Those are things you don't ask somebody how much they make.
I'm a Trump supporter.
No. Listen, whether they're fucking a postman or a fucking, they work at McDonald's, or whether they're a professional boxer, you're not supposed to ask somebody. So why do you think they would want that to be disclosed?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that the one thing I think Terrence Crawford would like to have not disclosed would be his ring resume when he's talking about a matchup against Sean Porter. Look at what Porter's done, even in losses against Errol Spence. It's still Errol Spence. You know, the guy comes back and he fights Formella, a guy who comes in, at 22-0. Beats Ugos, even though I thought Ugos won the fight, but still matched up against him. Then you got guys like Danny Garcia, Andre Berto, Keith Thurman, you name it. I don't see any of those names associated with Bud Crawford. So this delusion of who Bud Crawford is, let me tell you something, fake people. Bud Crawford doesn't know who Bud Crawford is. If Bud Crawford could step outside of himself and look at his own resume, he'd be like, "Dude, at 33, what are we doing?"
Exactly. If his name was anybody other than Terrence Crawford,
thank you.
He would be like, "Okay."
Amir Khan's got a better ring resume than he's got.
They would call him he'd be like a modern day Lucien Boutte, just in a smaller division and a different skin tone.
That's why he's trying to get this big fight against Manny Pacquiao. I know we're getting off topic, but he's trying to get this big fight.
He wants the big fight because he wants to get that name on his resume, and he wants the money that comes the big.
I'll be honest with you, Manny beats him hands down. Manny beats him hands down. If he can beat Keith Thurman, he beats Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford does not have enough output.
Manny flat out told him $40 million. $40 million. And there's okay, well then you obviously you don't know who I am. I've made $100 million in a fight. That's how I feel about it.
I'm going to show you how serious, and this is the bullshit that people got to cut through a little bit. If Terrence Crawford was serious about facing Manny Pacquiao, 70-30 would be an acceptable cut. But the fact that Terrence Crawford comes in and literally says 50-50, come on. It's not going to happen, man. All right? It's not going to happen. That's like, I'll be honest with you. I don't see a 50-50 with Errol Spence. Errol Spence has done what it takes. And Errol Spence, honestly, Bud doesn't want that fight. He could say it up and down, "I want that fight." No, you do not, Bud. I would say, you know what? If you really want the fight, get the name on your resume, then you'll truly be number one. Fight it for free. Knock the guy out like you say you're going to do it. It's never going to happen. You're going to be 38 years old one day with a couple losses on your record because that's how your career is going to toe. And you're going to go back to this day and you're going to look and go, "God damn, I could have done it again. I would have went out there and kept myself competitive." Fighting guys like Kavalukas and all these other bums that you're fighting in a broke down Cal Brook is not going to prepare you for an Errol Spence, a Manny Pacquiao, or some other young gun that's biting at the bit, man. I'm telling you, man.
There's a lot of young, strong 147 pounders kind of making their mark right now.
Prograis is on his ass, dude. He can't stand him. He wants that fight. He will chase him to the moon, he said.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Good fight.
We'll see.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, we're about an hour and a half in. So
hey, just real quick before we go,
sorry,
I saw this before we go. David Benavidez is back in action against Ronald Ellis. big hitting guy. He's the guy that just knocked out Matt Korboff recently.
Oh, so he did sign that fight then.
Yeah, the fight is going to be fought. It just popped up.
And I know this week we also have Adrian Broner coming this week too, right?
The 13th, yeah. The 13th is going
March?
to be Benavidez fight, yeah.
March.
Who's
Okay.
Broner fighting?
Broner's fighting.
He's actually fighting a good fighter.
fighting this week, right? He's fighting an
Yeah.
undefeated guy, right?
Yep.
Oh,
So I hope AB comes back.
I hope he had a good camp and he's focused.
Oh.
Because
He looked good. He looked good in his last interview. I saw him, and he looked real good. And I liked how he was punching. Because the one thing I liked about when he was working the mitts, I didn't see any of that Floyd Mayweather this shit. I saw AB digging into punches and shit. I like seeing that. So I hope he brings that mentality to the fight. I really do.
Yeah, that's a fight we kind of glossed over, but I'm sure we'll come back and talk about it on Sunday after the fight Saturday. But that's another one to look forward to this weekend. I believe that's going to be on Showtime, right? AB, Showtime or Fox Sports. It's on
I believe so. Yeah.
the PBC fight, so it'll either be on one of those two platforms. So,
Cool.
Yeah, we're about an hour and a half in. You guys, are we good for tonight?
Yeah. We're good, bro. Man, it was a fun show. I know I got a little.
sorry I'm late. Sorry I was late, guys.
That's all right. We'll be back on Sunday. Like
You
I
know,
said, we got some good fights coming up Saturday.
It just kind of got me hot, dude. As I was sitting right here, I was actually already tired. But when I read that article and I saw exactly why that, even though in those little insert, how it bothered you about what they said about Jojo Diaz.
Yeah, that's
It's just it's like blaming somebody for falling down and getting hurt. I don't get this kind of mentality.
Kicking a man when he's down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he's and he's not even that far down. I mean, it isn't like like I said, it isn't like he went in there and got knocked out by some guy.
Jojo Diaz will be a champion again, or a guy like Chon Cepeda, who's had, you know, the freak accident that happened, you know, over in the UK, and then to get, you know, snowballed, you don't get railroaded by
up
Ramirez,
in Fresno against
you know, up in
Ramirez.
Fresno in his hometown, and then you're going to try to get him to step aside so TFIMO could come in and get this. I don't think so. Messaging TFIMO, you want that fast track? It's got to go through Chon Cepeda.
Oh, they want nothing to do with Chon Cepeda.
Chon Cepeda,
Trust me.
4 rounds, bro. Blasts him in 4 rounds.
Not even, maybe even sooner, man. The first left hand he hits him with fight could be over.
I'll buy you a taco, Chon.
So, anyways, all right, guys. So that was it. Go ahead.
Sorry, no. When that fight does happen, maybe I'll drive down to California. We'll watch it together.
Oh yeah, for sure. Shit, if that fight happens and they're having crowds again, I'll be at that fight.
The fight
All right, we'll all be at that fight then.
If Ramirez beats Taylor, which I don't think Ramirez is going to, I think Taylor might win the fight.
Ramirez doesn't want to fight Chon again.
Yeah, but if that fight, but Chon being the mandatory, Ramirez isn't going to have a choice. He's going to have to fight it. They're both in the same banner. He's going to have to fight it, or he's going to get stripped. And then at that point, then that would make set up possibly an interesting matchup between Chon and Teofimo for the vacant title. That's another situation. But if that fight happens, it's not going to be in Fresno. I guarantee you it'll be in Vegas. Hopefully the doors are open and we will be ringside.
I will be ringside with you guys. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh. That'll be great.
Yep.
All right, fellas. So
good show today, brothers, man.
Yeah, good show. We kind of got a little off topic at the end, but that's all right. That's what makes it fun. So
that's what makes it fun, man.
Yeah. So we'll be back Sunday. We'll be back Sunday evening at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock on the west, 8 o'clock east. Looking forward to the fights on Saturday. If you got nothing going on Saturday, even if you do, man, cancel it and watch these fights.
Cancel it.
Cancel it. And like I said, you can jockey back and forth between that and the fights that are going to be on Showtime.
Mow the lawn on Sunday.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe, hit the bell, all that stuff, man. Tell your friends, your family, your Grammy.
Like Cosmic Cult says, do all that stuff. I don't know any of it.
Grammy.
Yeah. We'll see you guys. For all of us at Enter the Ring Live, I'm Mighty Mike.
I'm AJ Rage.
And I'm Eric the Red.
We'll see you guys on Sunday. Have a good night, everybody.